Hi, good morning, and welcome back to Create, Share, Inspire podcast. This is episode 739, and we're here live in Southwest Florida in my studio this morning. I promised we'd get back to that knitting tutorial with the circular needles and the different options for knitting in the round. And I was going to demonstrate the different types of needles and the different techniques. So I promised we'd get back to that. And besides, it's cold outside this morning. Now, it's not cold. It's not Michigan cold. It's not New York cold. It's South Florida cold. Let's wait. I'll talk about it in a minute. Hi, Grace and Thea, Lisa, Joe, Christine, Val, Kimberly, Donna, Judy, Constance, Sharon, Thea. Good morning, everybody. What is it, Tuesday? Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hi, Rita, Lily. So the low was 55 last night here. It's only going up to about 64 today and down to 45 tonight. So I know that doesn't sound very cold to a lot of you, but it's really cold for us. Hi, Kat and Nicole, Lorraine, good morning. Hi, Joyce and Angela, Mariana, good morning. Hi, Melissa, welcome back. So glad to see you here. Let's see, I've got a few other goodies to show you this morning too. I have a few little mini reviews to share with you about some goodies that I've found on my Amazon, and shared in my shop for you. 47 in Tucson. You're a day, Donna, you're a day ahead of our cold weather. It's supposed to be in the 40s here tonight. My birthday was fine, Christine. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Oh yeah, my kitties are going to be very cuddly tonight, and I will have lots and lots of layers on. I will not be turning the heat on or anything. I'm very stubborn about turning the heat on. I try to go the whole winter without turning the heat on, so there only ends up being a couple days that it's iffy, or a couple of nights, and this won't be one of those. It's not getting that cold. Hi Wendy, hi Marcia. All right, so welcome back to Create, Share, Inspire podcast. This is episode 739. I'm Kristin Omdahl, and we're here in Southwest Florida in my studio this morning. I want to talk to you about circular knitting needles and knitting in the round in general. We will get to that in a few minutes. First, I wanted to show you some little things that I have found recently. So what did I share in my Amazon shop this morning? Oh, I shared the closet extensions. So if you have a closet like me that's just plain Jane closet, one row of rods, there is this attachment you can find on Amazon that will hook into that bar and hang down. It's adjustable, 3 feet, maybe even a little bit more, and you can do a second row of hanging clothes in your closet, and it's adjustable widthwise and lengthwise. I got a 2-pack of them for $25, and I was able to double the space in my closet. So if you have a little closet that's very basic like mine, you might find that very exciting, and definitely a very cheap price for something that's kind of fancy closet feature. So if that's interesting to you, Judy's posted a link to it right here, the closet rods. I am so in love with mine because I don't have the kind of closet that you can just put your hangers on. It's the metal, it's the wire kind. So you only have an allotment for your hangers. And so to be able to spread the clothes out better and put one per allotment, it allows me to see my clothes better instead of jamming them together. And so having that second layer also allows me to organize my clothes better. I don't know if you've been watching the Home Edit or following those ladies on Instagram, but they do an amazing job of organizing their homes, like all the different rooms in their houses. And one of the things that they talk about is to make things functional when you organize is organizing by type and then organizing by color within the type. So I've been able to organize sleeveless tops, short sleeve, long sleeve, jackets, handmade items all in their own section, and then color coordinated each one of those in rainbow spectrum. So very exciting and very pleasurable to look at now when I go in the closet. I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like an adult. I feel a little more put together. Anytime I can organize stuff and it actually looks aesthetically beautiful and is also functional, I really get what they're talking about because it does bring a little bit extra joy into my life, and I think we can all use a little bit of extra joy sometimes. Hi, Olivia. Hi, Samantha. Hi, Melanie. If you're joining me live, please say hello. I try to say hello to everybody. If I miss your name, obviously I am sorry. Let me turn off the middle light. I feel like this middle light reflects on my glasses too much, and I think that might be annoying to people. I think it would be annoying to me if I was trying, you know how important eye contact is to me. I talk about it often, and if you can't see my eyes, and you see a glare instead, I think that would be uncomfortable. So let's just move the other lights. 1 second. I want to talk about my outfit too, and I have a little bit of a makeup update for you as well. So we did talk about my makeup recently, and I probably didn't actually end up telling you what kind of makeup I went with, but I did pop it in my Amazon shop. I don't know if the lights are even close enough that you can see. So the new foundation that I found is by Dior, and it's an airbrushed foundation, and that is really nice because it's so smoothing and so light. But the real exciting one was the for mature aging skin concealer that I found, and the tip that I found from the makeup artist that sold it to me, that you do not put powder under your eyes. So the two things that I was doing wrong before is, number one, using a concealer that I don't know, maybe it was dry too. Not sure what I was doing wrong in the concealer. I'll come back to that. But I was using a mineral powder foundation that just looked like a compact, and I just put a powder foundation on. And she said that putting dry stuff on your skin as you're aging only amplifies your wrinkles. And I had even admitted to her, I look more wrinkly when I put my makeup on than when I don't have my makeup on. So she said the key to that is using a moist foundation and only putting powder on the foundation, never putting powder under your eyes. So I went with the airbrushed foundation, which just goes on light and smooths imperfections like magic. And then I powder that with translucent powder, and then put my concealer on last with my ring fingers and just dab it on, and I feel like it stays on better. It does not cake in my wrinkles and amplify them to make them look bigger. If anything, I have the same amount of wrinkles before and after makeup, if not appearing less wrinkly with makeup on, whereas with the other makeup, it was the opposite. I looked more aged with my makeup on. Let me see. Hi, Jill. Hi, Carla. Hi, Olivia. Hi, Patricia. Thank you, Judy, for posting the links. Yeah, I'm super excited about it. I feel like it's made a definite improvement in my skin, or in my appearance. Oh yeah, and also making sure you wear eye cream and moisturizer before you put your makeup on. That's the other thing. Thank you, Marcia. Yes, that's a big one too. So the next thing I wanted to mention to you guys is, I'm sure you've seen the ads on Instagram and Facebook and all over the internet. There's my little, hold on, this is the little doohickey that holds the thingy together. Hold on. So I'm sure you've seen all the ads for magnetic false lashes. And yes, I went down the rabbit hole and tried it myself. So I found a really good deal on Amazon. It comes with the applicator, 5 different sizes and styles of false lashes, and 2 containers of the magnetic liner. And it was super easy to put on. So I put a layer of eyeliner on with the magnetic liner, and then I wait for it to dry, and as soon as it's dry, I pop the lashes on. Super easy to do. Like I said, this particular one comes in 5 different styles. I went with the medium length one. I don't know if you can see it. Might have to come closer. Now, I will say I tried to do it yesterday and failed as I was getting ready to go live for the podcast. So I felt like a hot mess yesterday morning because the liner ended up feeling funny without the lashes on it. But now that I took my time a little bit better this morning and did a more consistent layer. So what I found is that I go light on eyeliner in the corner of my eyes normally, but if you're using magnetic liner to adhere a lash to, you actually need to cover the whole thing, duh. So I had to make sure that I was using it as a tool and not just for design. So eyeliner is different when you're using it for this application. So as I put it straight on, the lashes went on very easily this morning. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, super fun, super easy to do. Obviously I didn't read the instructions, so obviously it took me a little longer to figure it out, but now that I figured it out, it is super, super easy to do. And I got the applicator, 2 tubes of the liner, and 5 different styles of lashes for $24. So I thought that was a really good deal. Thank you, Judy, for posting a link to it. So if anyone else wants to try, you can. They will last longer if you clean them in between applications too. Okay, let's see if anybody has any questions before we move on. Someone's talking about red shoes. I don't know what the red shoes are about, but I'd like to know. I have red shoes. I wouldn't wear them with this. This is pink. Oh, I should tell you guys what I'm wearing today too. So I'm wearing the black, the fitted tank top dress from my Amazon shop. I'm also wearing Spanx underneath. I'm wearing the ones that come up to your waist and are the shorts because I feel like at my size, I just have too many bumps and things in around here, so I feel definitely more smooth and put together when I put on the fitted dress. And I'm wearing the Bonita Beach shawl over the top. This is the one that we washed and blocked last week. Do you remember that? What do you clean the lashes with? Great question. Eye makeup remover. Anything that you use to clean your, so like I use oil to wash my face. I use a cleansing oil. So you could clean them with whatever you clean your face with, oil, like a cleansing oil, or you could use eye makeup remover. And just dab it with a Q-tip. All right, so this is the shawl that we washed and blocked and pinned out and blocked last week on my back porch and let it dry. So I'm going to take it off for a second so you can see the shape. It is a half circle top down knit lace shawl that is very easy to do. It's a lot easier than it looks. It has those elongated drop stitches in it, and it has a feather and fan chevron stitch pattern alternated between the drop stitches. It's so, so pretty. This would be great for doing in colors also. So if you wanted to grab some tidbits and do this in a couple of colors, that the stripes would be more prominent that way. That would be pretty too. I like stripes within the same color like this, and I like stripes with color. So, I mean, you can choose how you want to do it, but I think if you were going to do more than one, it would be super fun to do it both ways. All right, so when I'm going to wear it off my shoulder and on the side like I did, I try to pin it about halfway down because I want the neck opening to be rather large for this style. So I try to pin it evenly, and then I'm going to move it to the side because I want that pin, or the clip, I want it to be like, I want it to come off my shoulder, because when it comes off my shoulder, I get a bit of a diagonal line here, and then my arm easily comes out. And I just feel like it looks more like a top than a shawl this way. When you can adjust the length, adjust those angles. See, so we've got a diagonal line going this way and a diagonal line going this way. You've got a shoulder exposed and an arm exposed. It kind of feels like some cross between a top and a wrap this way. It's more of an optical illusion. And always nice to cover your arms if you're going out. So what is the name of the shawl next to the Margot top? That's the Sadie shawl, the purple one right here. That's in Be So Baby yarn in color lilac. Thank you, Sharon. Sharon's giving me eyebrow advice. Thank you, I appreciate it. Yes, I am definitely guilty of being someone that plucked their eyebrows too much in the 90s, and now I don't have the eyebrows that I would like. Anyway, but thanks for the suggestion. Thanks, Sharon. Oh, good, Donna. I'm glad you like Be So Baby yarn. Okay, so, Thea, you did it in the 70s. Oh, were 70s a time when you overplucked eyebrows too? I thought it was the 90s. I know I had a unibrow at one point when I first started modeling, and nobody liked it. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I wanted to get to the little mini tutorial that we talked about the other day. So I thank you, Sharon. So I got a question on a video last week, and in that video someone was making one of my knit lace skirts in the round, and she said, I put my stitches on a circular needle and it's way too big. How do I know what size to use? And I thought that's not only a great question, but it's a great question for everybody. And that here's the simple rule of thumb when you're choosing a circular needle for whatever you're making. And that's assuming you're making something in the round. If you're making something in rows like this, the bigger the better to accommodate a large number of stitches. That's fine. But if you're making something in the round, that is not the rule. The rule of thumb is to go with something slightly shorter than the circumference of what you're making. So what does that mean? So this length here is around 16 inches, okay? So this is a great circumference knitting needle for hats or for sleeves. You always want the circumference of your needles to be slightly smaller than the circumference of what you're making rather than larger. You want it smaller, not larger, because if you have something that's larger, how are the stitches going to get around there? You'd rather them be a little squished together than stretched too far apart. And there's a reason for that, twofold. Let me get the bigger one out. Let's say you wanted to make a hat and you tried to put let's untangle our knitting needles first. Okay, so you can see here's the circumference of our hat. If I wasn't worried about these stitches falling off the needle, and this is the same, this is a 16-inch circular like that one. So here's our hat. So you've got however many number of stitches that is. Imagine if you were trying to put them on this size needle, what would happen? They'd have to stretch so far to get around there that A, it might be physically impossible, and B, even if it was almost possible, you'd be pulling those stitches so hard to get them around, and you'd be stretching them out so much that you would be affecting your gauge, definitely, and even compromising your stitches and even damaging your work. So if you go too big, you can cause a lot of problems and end up being unsuccessful and definitely end up being not pleasurable at all. So you always want to, the rule of thumb would be something slightly smaller than the circumference of what you're working on. So making a hat, your hat's going to be anywhere between 18 and 24 inches. A 16-inch circular is awesome for this size. If you're making a cowl in the round, a cowl in the round would be anywhere between 20 to 30 inches in circumference. So if it was going to be a smaller one, like a 20-inch, that's around a hat circumference again. So you'd want to stick with this size needle. Something a little bit bigger, if it's over 24 inches, if it's say 26 to 30, go with the 24-inch circular, because there is a time when too small is not good either. If you go with too small and you've got too many stitches crammed in there, you'll end up struggling to get things through, and you can break needles sometimes. That cord can come off of the needle side, and it can also be stressful because you're pulling on your work too hard. And if you pull really too hard, you can drop stitches sometimes as well. So it's always good to keep your tools appropriate for what you're making so that you're not working too hard. Anytime we work too hard, we end up compromising our stitches, we get stressed, and we work, sometimes when I'm stressed, I work too hard, and then that affects my gauge as well, or makes me make more mistakes. So you always want to go with something slightly smaller than the circumference. So let's say you're making a garment. You would, let's say your garment is 36 inches diameter in the chest or more. You could still use a 24-inch, or you could go up from there. Now, if you're doing a top-down increasing top that say starts at 20 here and then goes to 36 eventually down here, or more when you're doing the whole yoke before separating for arms and sleeves, 24 inches is a good starting point. You can always start with 24 and you can go up from there. The other thing I wanted to mention is if you don't like working on circular needles, but you still want to work in the round for a hat, you have the option of double point needles too. I don't know too many people that prefer double points to everything else. However, there's a time and a place for everything, and there's a tool for every application. So sometimes, let's say you're even working on a 16-inch circular knitting in the round for this hat, and it's the type of hat where you're going to decrease for the crown. It is a lot easier to switch to double points to do that decreasing, because when you get to a circumference that is much smaller than the 16-inch of this cord and knitting circular knitting needle set, you're going to have the same problem that you had trying to use too large of a needle for a small circumference. So that's another reason to switch to double points. Now, having said all that, there are other ways to work small circumferences with large needles if you use a super long needle and use one of two techniques. There's working on 2 needles at one time, and then there's working the magic loop on 1 needle. I don't know if I grabbed a larger, but does anybody want to see me move these to double points first? I can move these stitches to a double point first and talk about that a little longer, or we can move on to the larger set of knitting needles and talk about magic loop and knitting on 2 circulars. So I'll just wait and see if anyone wants to see them move to double points first. Yes, see them on double points first. Okay. Okay, some people like to knit on 3 double points and use the 4th one for knitting, and some people like to knit on, put their stitches on 4 double points and use 1 for knitting. There is no wrong way. That actually ends up being a preference. Sometimes it's based on the multiple of the stitches you're working on, because if you're working a stitch pattern that actually, you know, uses 2 stitches like a knit 2 together or an SKP, if you're doing something like that, you need those stitches to be on the same needle. So I'm going to move these over. So let's pretend that I was getting ready to do the crown right now. That would be a good reason for moving these. Yeah, a lot of people use double points for socks. That's true. And some people, Susie prefers double points over 16 inches, and she prefers 2 circulars to magic loop. Yep, and there's a, you know, that's the beauty of having options. Everybody can choose what they prefer. Okay, so I moved a section of my stitches to 1 needle. And this is a knit 1, purl 1 pattern, so I'm just keeping those together. I'm doing an even number of stitches across my needles, and I'm just slipping them. I suppose you could knit them across. I like to actually not knit when I transfer stitches to another needle set of needles. I like to do this as its own standalone technique. But you're slipping them just like you were slipping to knit or purl, whichever way you do, it doesn't matter, as long as you get your stitches set up properly. And this is also another reason to switch to the split ring stitch markers. Stitch markers can get kind of funky when you're using double points, because there's nothing for them to sit on in between needles. And I find that it's easier for me to use the split ring stitch markers, which are the ones that are more commonly used in crochet, and they're the ones that I sell in my toolkit. I find that they're such a great hybrid tool because they work for both knitting and crochet, and they work for knitting applications when regular stitch markers don't. So if you were doing a top-down hat and you were starting with a crown that's increasing, you would start with double points, increase out to the number of stitches that you could either work even in the round on the hat in the double points, or sometimes people like to then switch to a circular. And then again, for a hat, as long as you're not doing any of the, you know, extra techniques like magic loop or 2 needle, if you were just working 1 needle, you would want to use a 16-inch circular for that. Okay, all right, looks like I put them on 3. Now, depending on the length of your double points, you may have lots of extra room on the edges here, or you may not. something to keep in mind here, make sure your stitches are in the middle. Like they're going to be at the edge on whichever given needle you're knitting onto, but as soon as you finish that section and you move on to knitting the next section, make sure those stitches are in the middle, because it is really easy to drop stitches in this technique. And why is that? Because they're not connected, right? So if these stitches are too close to the edge and you're not paying attention, what's going to happen to that stitch there? It's going to fall off, and you're not even going to notice it until you get back to that section of your work when you finish the next round. So it's really important to keep them in the center. If you have stitches that are really slippery on your needles, you could even put something there. You could put rubber, you know how people use a rubber band to secure their needles when they're not using them? You could use a rubber band on the edges of these in between rounds just so they don't fall off too. You know, some of these little extra tips are great for beginners, because until you get comfortable handling your work, stitches falling off can be disastrous for a beginner situation. Yeah, split ring marker is always a good idea if you're not sure where to put your stitch marker too. I'm going to see if there's any more questions. Does anybody have any more questions about double points? Because then I will move these stitches to the larger circular and show you some tips across that too. Now I do have videos on all of this. If you want to see videos on how to knit with magic loop, I do have a video series on that here on my YouTube channel. I think my lashes are so long that they're touching my glasses. Maybe not. Maybe I'm making it up. No, I don't feel it now. I think I'm just not used to wearing eyelashes. Great, Robin. I'm glad this is helping. If you have any more questions, please feel welcome to ask. This is the place to ask. That's what's so awesome about this live stream in the morning, is that we can chat back and forth here. Yes, I should have some split ring stitch markers. Let me see where they're at. Might be in this drawer. Oh, it reminds me, I wanted to show you another gadget that I found on Amazon. I found something that I think will be helpful for organizing my knitting, or my crochet hooks on my desk here. Here they are. So you might see that I have this like Lazy Susan thing here. That I keep all my knitting needles, or all my crochet hooks and extra tools in, and I don't really love the way it is. So I bought these on Amazon yesterday. See how they're angled? So it came as a 3-pack, and I shared it in my craft folder on my Amazon shop this morning. I like that they're white because my office is mostly white, and I'm going to set all 3 of them up on the edge of my desk. But can you see how this... I love that they're angled, so you could put pens and pencils in one of them, but I like the fact that I'm going to be able to put crochet hooks. Like I'm going to organize them more by size, like maybe not by specific size, but maybe like by small, medium, large, and extra large sizes. And I could either put them in this way so I could see the color coding sizes, or I could put them in this way so that they all look nice and neat. But I really like these. So what is it? 1, 2, there's 4 pockets in each one of these, and it came as a 3-pack on Amazon. It was not very expensive either. Hi, Chris. Thanks, Christine. Okay, Judy's posting a link to the Magic Loop knitting video. I think you might really enjoy that, and I will show that here in a minute. Oh yeah, I was going to grab the stitch strip marker. So this is the set of stitch markers that actually comes in my toolkit, and what I love about them is a couple of things. First of all, split ring, which means it works for any application. You can use them as solid ring stitch markers, but you can also use them with that split ring to mark a variety of things, including where a specific technique happened, like where you did something that a buttonhole is going to go later. A lot of times a pattern will say, mark this spot for future reference. That is a great spot to do that. But you can also mark things that are crochet, because crochet doesn't work with the solid ring ones. But the other thing that I love about these is that they're color coded. Who doesn't love a rainbow, right? But it's more than just aesthetically why it's important to have multiple colors. It's important to have multiple colors so you can mark different things across a row or a round. If you want to mark the beginning and end of a round, you don't want to use the same color as you use to mark the beginning or end of each repeat of a stitch pattern or different stitch patterns within a row. It's really important to have a different color for the or another example, you're doing a top-down raglan shaped yoke, knit or crochet. You need to mark the beginning and end of the row, and you also need to mark those 4 corners for the raglan increases or decreases if you're going bottom up, but regardless, you get my point. You need one color for that technique and one color for the beginning and end of the round. And like I've talked about this in the past before too. There was one season on Knit and Crochet Now where I did a sampler Afghan where it wasn't like rows of a stitch pattern, then switch to the other one, then switch to the other one sampler. It was a sampler where you vertically did the samples of each stitch pattern side by side, which was a great application for having the different colors. So I color coded each stitch pattern in my pattern and used that color for the beginning of each of those sections. So, oh, I'm at my yellow section, time to do seed stitch. I'm at my green section, time to do the cabled lace or whatever it was. I forget what they were called. I don't remember it, but you get my point. It's a great way to color code different things, different techniques, or different things you're going to be doing in a project. So I think someone then said, how do you put these on? Another great question. Do I have a rubber band to show you how to secure the stitches? Probably not. I could run to my bedroom and grab more of my own to show you if you want to see how that's done. But literally, you would just put a rubber band on here, just like you would do on a ponytail. Okay, so the split ring stitch marker. See if I can come close enough to show you. Here it is closed. If it's important to see the rubber band, just say so and I'll go get it. So you open it up, and there it is open. So you can see there's a little thing that it clips into on the back side there. So when it's open, you just insert it into your work. Try not to split a stitch. You want to go around a stitch, not splitting a stitch, and then you lock it back up, and then it's going to stay right there. So you can mark round, you can mark length from rounds, you can mark a space within the round. Yes, it's a split ring, not a spit ring. Okay, but I do want to pause to make sure there aren't any more questions about what I've talked about so far. And then we will move on to putting these stitches onto a longer circular and possibly doing some magic loop. I don't know if I grabbed a long enough one. I should go see if there is a longer one. Yes, they are very handy, yes. So there's a lot of reasons to use stitch markers. Yes, Samantha, that is the beauty of bamboo yarn. Samantha was mentioning she couldn't believe what beautiful movement this shawl has while I'm moving. Yes, I'm not making any effort on it, right? Once I put it on, I'm not fussing with it anymore. It's doing its own job of just looking beautiful. It drapes on my body and my curves beautifully, and it has amazing movement when I get up. Like, I wasn't doing this. You just saw that as I was moving, it moves with me and moves independently, but in such a beautiful way. Thank you for pointing that out, because that really is the beauty of a yarn that is bamboo and #1 fingering weight. This is a very special feature of Be So Fine yarn. Be So Sporty is also similar, but it's a little heavier, so it has its own benefits as well. Yes, there are several types of stitch markers. That is true. Now, sometimes you may buy stitch markers that are beaded or they come with a ring on them. And one of the things that I think that you ought to be cognizant of when you're shopping for stitch markers, because again, do I sell every stitch marker known to mankind? No. Am I going to tell you that these are the only ones you should ever buy? Absolutely not. But when you're looking at stitch markers, there's a couple of things that I feel can cause problems when you're working, and that's if you're using the ones that the jump rings that are actually have the cut in the ring. Do you know what am I saying this right? I want to call them, are they jump rings when they have the seam? I can't remember. I know Grace and Judy and I talk about this all the time, and they're constantly correcting me, and I constantly say it or write it wrong. Okay, so jump rings are the ones that have the split in them. And if you have a stitch marker that has the split in it, let's see if I have one in here. I might have one. I don't like to use them because on thinner yarn, sometimes the yarn can get snagged in that split, and then that defeats the purpose of being a handy tool. It ends up being a not so handy tool. Okay, so this kind is fine. If you go with something that has a lobster claw on it, that actually works very much like a stitch, like the split ring stitch markers do, because it opens and closes. But the one on a jump ring, as cute as they are, I am cautious about using them because it can split your yarn. I don't see one in here. But if you're I would look for one that has a solid closed ring, not a jump ring. Okay, I can't see one. These need to be cleaned up, by the way. It doesn't actually look very queen-like to have a queen cup on your desk and have it full of junk. Time to clean that up. It doesn't actually look like it doesn't have the right symbol. Kat agrees that jump rings are difficult to use. Yeah, so if you're shopping for handmade ones, always just ask, say, are they made on jump rings or closed rings? And I feel like if you can find somebody that makes them that you like their style and their beads and whatever, just make sure that they're on closed rings, not jump rings. Okay, so I don't see any more questions about what we've talked about so far, so I'm going to slip these stitches now onto the circular, and then we'll talk about another way that you can work small circumferences of knitting in the round, but on larger needles. And one of the great reasons to learn magic loop, we have shown the technique in a video tutorial. Judy posted the link here this morning already. You can also search magic loop here on my YouTube channel and find more information about it. Wow, we've gone long today, haven't we? I knew this was going to take a long time, though. It's a lot to talk about. Okay, so bear with me. We can get started, and we can always pick this back up tomorrow as well, because there is a lot. And actually, if I do a pause after we get these on here and we pick it back up tomorrow, then I can bring out a second set of knitting needles and compare and contrast the knitting on 2 circulars versus magic loop. And what I wanted to say, one of the most important reasons to learn this, in my opinion, is to cut your investment cost down when you're learning how to knit. If you like circulars or you like working in the round, it can cost a lot of money to buy multiple sizes of needles with multiple sizes of circular cords. So let's say you are going to make a bunch of stuff on size 8 needles. You would need a set of 16-inch circulars for hats, 24-inch circulars for sweaters, and maybe 36-inch circulars for shawls to accommodate the large number of stitches. Well, that's a lot of needles. And if you just learn how to use magic loop, you could do all of those on the 36 or even a 40-inch circular knitting needle cord length. Gray solid circle markers, not very useful. Well, they're only useful for knitting. They're not useful for crochet. It's always more useful to have something that opens. I agree. But they are pretty, and I know a lot of people like to use them. Okay, so I've got my stitches onto my circular here, and I wanted to demonstrate quickly why this would be a nightmare to try to do it on its own. Look at if I try to slide these stitches around to actually knit them just in the round. Look at how I'm messing up my work, and look at how see how that would affect your gauge if you really tried to force this, and I still can't even get it all the way to the edge. So that's not going to work. So what I'll do, and we will pick this up tomorrow, but what I wanted to point out first of all is why it's important, why you might want to learn these techniques, and that is so that for every size of needle that you want to purchase, if you're new to knitting, 4 millimeter, 5 millimeter, 6 millimeter, if you learn the magic loop technique, you only need to purchase one long circular needle in each of those needle sizes, just do one cord size for all of them instead of having to buy multiples. And it would be a smaller investment as you're learning to knit. So tomorrow we will pick back up where we left off here, and I will show you magic loop and knitting on 2 circulars so that you can see how we can do smaller circumferences on the larger needles. Does anybody have any other questions at the moment with what we've talked about so far? Wendy wants to get comfortable with knitting. That's great. All right, and if we don't get to your question and you come up with questions later today thinking about the podcast, please always feel welcome to come back and leave your comments in the recorded version of the podcast. I get notified of those comments throughout the day as well, and we can always answer your questions there or save them for future episodes as well. So thanks to whoever asked about circular cord lengths with knitting in the round the other day, because it did really spar a great conversation to have here, and we will pick this up where we left off tomorrow. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy day to spend a few minutes here with me. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, seeing some of my new Amazon finds, chatting with me and everyone else here. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. I don't know if I can reach this. I'm going to have to come around. Don't mind me, just tripping.